Imagine a startup with $12 billion of revenue, more than 125% of year-over-year revenue growth for 2 years in a row, and a gross margin of 30 to 50%. Without knowing anything else about the business, what would you value it at? $50 billion? $100 billion? More? Well, that's Apple's AirPod business for you. It's the fastest growing segment of the world's most valuable company. When Apple released its first ever AirPods in 2016 alongside the iPhone 7, it was considered as an accessory that could complement the iPhone. It was thought to be a supplement in handling the loss of the headphone jack. Remember those tiny little jacks? The idea was that instead of selling every new phone with earphones included, Apple could sell improved earphones as a second product, without changing the price of the phone. A smart move for an incremental revenue boost, but the magnitude of AirPods' success has surpassed all expectations. Now it looks like AirPods could become much more than just an iPhone accessory. Apple sold roughly 15 million units of AirPods in 2017, each priced at $150, giving Apple a $2.25 billion revenue, which accounted for a 1% boost in Apple's $215 billion iPhone revenue that year. But in 2018, AirPods sales began to creep up. 35 million pairs were sold, giving Apple an additional $5.25 billion in revenue, this time representing 2.4% of iPhone's revenue. And in 2019, Apple pulled off yet another incredible year of AirPod sales. Apple sold an estimated 60 million units. But in 2019, the prices increased too. Apple's second generation AirPods launched at $200, and their newest variation, the AirPods Pro, sold for $250. Assuming an even split of sales between the three, AirPods revenue was $12 billion in 2019. That's 4.5% of Apple's iPhone revenue. Well, I agree that 4.5% doesn't sound that impressive. But remember, it's 4.5% of the world's most successful product, which represents almost all of the revenue of the $1.3 trillion behemoth that is Apple. That converts to AirPods being $60 billion worth of business. At such a rate, AirPods make as much money as Spotify, Twitter, Snapchat and Shopify combined. And considering their triple-digit growth 2 years in a row, it might even surpass Uber in 2020. With such growth and future potential, AirPods is on its way to building a platform where it will be all about augmenting our environment by pushing intelligent sound. The current app paradigm primarily consists of downloading an app to our smartphone, TV, or computer. We then interact with the app to pull information when needed. App notifications try to provide that information by itself but lacks smartness, so instead represents mostly useless distractions more than anything else. The Apple Watch was the first device that genuinely questioned the current interface paradigm. The Siri watch face on Apple Watches provided a glanceable amount of information in the form of cards, picked by a digital assistant and personalized to the person wearing it based upon the time of day and schedule. In essence, it moved away from pulling data from various apps to receiving a curated feed that's dynamical in manner and tailored to our needs. Apple is turning AirPods into the second platform built for what comes after the App Store. Instead of being about pushed snippets of information and data via a digital assistant, something that will likely remain ideal for mobile screens, AirPods will be all about augmenting our environment by pushing intelligent sound. AirPods Pro wearers were already able to experience the early days of this dynamic with transparency mode. Switching between transparency mode and ANC is equivalent to augmenting our environment. We are receiving two different experiences despite being in the same location. Being part of a trillion-dollar company gives them a huge advantage in building the platform. It can derive power from three sources: technology advantage, design focus, and massive adoption. AirPods Pro do not replace AirPods in the product line. Apple is instead embracing a strategy of expanding the product line according to functionality. AirPods Pro represent the expansion of the AirPods line into a higher-end segment that places value with ANC. The end result is that Apple now has 3 different AirPods models, each targeting a different price segment of the wireless headphone market. It is certainly reasonable to expect Apple will continue pushing this strategy in the coming years so that we see a pair of AirPods go for as low as $99 and as high as $500. We see similar product strategies with the iPad and Mac lines. With these, Apple sells a range of flagship products with varying degrees of functionality and, of course, price. This AirPod evolution into a platform does not come as a surprise. Some Apple analysts predicted in 2016 saying AirPods will turn out to be one of the most strategically important hardware products Apple has released this decade. However, you would never know it judging by the way Apple unveiled the device. Instead of receiving stage time at Apple's big product event at Steve Jobs Theater 1 month earlier, AirPods Pro received the press release treatment. I suspect that was intentional. While the press remains focused on the short-term debate surrounding the iPhone's lack of the 3.5mm headphone jack, few have realized that Apple just unveiled its second wearables platform. AirPods have turned into a cultural phenomenon, while dedicated headphone jacks on smartphones have just become relics. Meanwhile, Apple's wearable train continues to gain momentum as the company grabs real estate on our wrists and in our ears by bringing a new level of personal computing to the masses. And don't forget, AirPods only represent a portion of Apple's audio business. Apple also owns Beats by Dr. Dre, which is responsible for a healthy chunk of the world's over-ear headphone market.